Okay, Borodar Pawb, welcome everyone to the Cabinet meeting today, the 26th of July. Just a reminder, this meeting has been webcast, and with the exception of any business that the Cabinet resolves to exclude the press and public because of likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by the Local Government Act 1972. So we'll go to item 1, apologies. Do we have any apologies today? No apologies. And is the Chief Executive able to join us online? Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Yes, I am online.
Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any declarations of interest in relation to the items?
Members will be aware of the requirement under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in the business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it's a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the chamber for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal or personal and prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is available either from the staff here today or online.
Thank you, Gary. Does anyone need to declare an interest either in the room or online? Councillor German.
I need to declare a personal interest in item 8. I have 2 children who attend Prestatyn High School.
On a similar note, very similar note, I need to declare a personal interest in agenda item 8. My daughter also attends Prestatyn High School. Apologies, we will go to urgent matters. I have received notification from Councillor Mark Young. Mark, you're here today, thank you. In relation to a question around care home costs. Mark, I've got to go through the formalities before we go ahead. So I'm going to ask Gary to explain the statutory requirements for bringing an urgent question, and then we'll move on from there. So Gary, can you explain the procedure? And it's statutory, Mark, it's the law, the legalities before we move on.
The legalities are that we're not supposed to consider anything that's not on the agenda. The Constitution does provide that members who are not on Cabinet can ask a question about a matter that's not on the agenda, provided they give 3 working days notice of their question. My understanding is that the question didn't arrive with the requisite period of notice, but as chair of Cabinet in your position as leader, you do have discretion to allow a matter if you consider that it's sufficiently in the interest of the Cabinet and the Council to take it. But constitutionally, there should be 3 working days notice.
Provision about the nature of the question itself.
Yes, the question needs to be about a matter that is, if you like, something for which the Cabinet is responsible, and usually an urgent matter would be where there was a requirement for a decision to be made before the Cabinet could next meet. Again, that doesn't really apply to a question. So in terms of urgency, that's why we have the 3 working day notice period. But as I said, you do have the discretion to allow the question should you wish to do so.
Okay, thanks, Gary. So that's cleared up the legalities. Mark, I'm going to let you in. The 3 days weren't met, and it's an important topic. I'm glad you raised it. But it's a question on our existing policy and ongoing policy, which people may or may not agree with. There's channels to challenge that policy, but it doesn't require a decision today. Having said that, I've read the question, and I'm happy to exercise my discretion to let you come in on it. Okay, so do I need to ask members in the room and online, do they need to declare any interests in relation, because the declaration of interest with the agenda as it was set out?
The issue would be once members have heard the question, you might want to pause to ask if anybody's got an interest they want to declare.
So if you want to ask the question, Mark, then I'll ask about declarations of interest.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and sorry about the late question, but thanks for giving me the chance. It's really appreciated because, as you say, it's really important. So, Cabinet, you'll be aware of the press across Wales and more recently North Wales regarding care costs paid by local authorities. Last month, Gwynedd Council Cabinet voted to increase fees for nursing care by 25%, and now also Anglesey have agreed to increase its fees also by up to 25%. And I'm told Conway and Wrexham have also conducting reviews on funding levels. So due to these recent reports as mentioned, my question after the above being raised in the press and to me personally, I'm going to loan the councils and moving away from the regional approach on care funding. Where are Denbighshire regarding this, as I feel response today by Cabinet will be helpful and appreciated by elected members, residents and of course care providers. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Before I go to the lead member, and we have Nicola, the lead officer here, does anyone need to declare any interest in relation to the topic on care homes? Okay, Helen.
Thank you for your question, Mark. I am aware of the recent press regarding care fees in North Wales, and I do welcome this opportunity to address this issue and to clarify Denbighshire's position. So each year, Denbighshire County Council sets the fees in advance of the next financial year for externally commissioned residential and nursing care packages, specialist care homes, domiciliary care, and supported living schemes. This isn't a unilateral decision. It is done in collaboration with the North Wales Regional Care Fees Group and in consultation with providers. So broadly following this regionally agreed methodology, a decision was taken in January of this year to increase the fees and to pay the real living wage. So this meant for the 2022-23 financial year, from the previous year's fees, there was an increase of 6.96% for residential care homes, 10.15% for EMI residential care homes, 7.04% for nursing homes, 10.21% for EMI nursing homes, and 8.12% for domiciliary care. Letters had been sent out in February to providers outlining the proposed fee increases, and meetings had been held to discuss this. Whilst many of our providers had welcomed this, concerns had been raised about increased costs, such as fuel cost increases are affecting domiciliary care, the increase of groceries, utilities, and insurance affecting care homes, acknowledging the reliance some had placed on the Welsh Government's temporary COVID-19 financial uplift support, which has now been taken away, and as well of course, the cost of further retention and recruitment challenges. So therefore, a further decision had been taken in June of this year to recognise this current challenge and to provide an additional uplift to the current fees. And just as a side note, I would like to add that this was before Gwynedd and Anglesey had publicly announced their fee increases. So this means for residential and nursing care home fees and specialist care home fees, a decision was taken to increase the CPI from, I think it's 3.1% in September 2021 to 7% in March this year. This is reflecting these inflating costs. For domiciliary care, a decision was taken to apply an additional 50p rate to all hour-long calls, which is half the £1 an hour, which had been supplemented by the Welsh Government for the whole of 2021 to 22. And to increase the cost of increasing the half-hour calls by 50p in recognition of provider feedback and reduce productive time between the shorter calls. So this has been backdated to the 1st of April, and letters had been sent out on the 21st of June to the providers confirming this, and it had been welcomed by many. If I could just read a response from one of the providers to you, it reads, "I just wanted to thank you for the additional component to the uplift for 2022 to 23. It is very positive that you were able to respond to the points raised by providers and is appreciated. Please pass on our thanks to others involved in the review." The most important note that I would like to add today, as I think it is necessary for members to be aware of, as well as residents, is that Denbighshire has always maintained the position with all of our providers that if they are having particular difficulties, we would meet with them and undertake an open book exercise. So to reiterate this, The offer is there for providers to meet with the council if they are having financial difficulties, so long as they justify the need for additional support by opening their books. So to summarise, as I am conscious that's been quite a lengthy response, but I do think it's important to consider the context when comparing figures, as our social care market is significantly different to that of Anglesey and that of Gwynedd. So with that in mind, Denbighshire has been reviewing this issue and has provided fee increases that reflect our local pressures. And I know that Denbighshire will continue to work with providers and the North Wales Regional Care Fees Group as it now begins work to determine the care fees for 2023 and 24. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. That was a very comprehensive reply. Thanks very much. Thank you. So for me, the takeaway from that is if you've got if there's a care home struggling, the offer's there, the door's open, come and talk to us. I'm not going to take this for debate. We've got the full agenda to get through today. Mark, is your question, having said that, is there anything you want to come back on?
No, and it's a very thorough response, and thank you for that. And I guess the challenge is now the regional approach will have to be reviewed because 2 councils have gone on their own. That's work in progress. Well, thanks for the response, Jock and Val.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
again,
question,
Chair.
Mark. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to perhaps the item with the longest title I've ever known in the years in local government, the review of cabinet decision relating. Oh, sorry, I was so looking forward to that long item, but I've got the minutes. So minutes to the cabinet meeting on the 28th of June. So if we can go through pages 1 to 8 for accuracy. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and any matters arising from the minutes of the meeting of the 7th of the last meeting. Is that Hugh? Sorry, I've got Hugh Williams in front of you.
Thanks, Chair. Just briefly, on page 8, the levelling up discussion we had last month. As you're aware, the criteria has now changed. That an MP can give priority up to two bids. So my concern is that we are now, there's a 20 million bid in Conway and a 10 million bid, or whatever the figures are, give or take here. How do we, what is the confidence that the both will get through? And will we lose out, or is there more money available now on the back of the changes of criteria? Really, that's the concern. Back of the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay, Hugh, I think you raised a similar question last time. It's a good question. The answer to which, off the top of my head, I don't know. There's a discussion I think we should have with Emlyn and perhaps Gareth. So if you want to email Emlyn, copy me in if you like as well. We'll have that. We'll have that discussion. Okay. I mean, the change of policy would have perhaps avoided the discussion, shall we say, that we had at the last cabinet. But yeah, nevertheless, there has been a change of policy. So yeah, if you want to email Emlyn, copy me in, we'll have that conversation. Okay. So there's no more matters arising from the minutes. Can someone propose they're a true and accurate reflection? So Barry proposed, Ellen seconded. Okay. Thank you. Right. Agenda item 5, the review of the cabinet decision relating to the proposed scheme of delegated decision making for land acquisition, freehold and leasehold for carbon sequestration and ecological improvement purposes. Very long-winded title, as I say. This is a topic that straddles the council before and after the election, and indeed the cabinet before the election and after the election. So there was a decision made by cabinet in February in relation to the acquisition of land for the purposes of Denbighshire meeting its carbon reduction levels. And there was, following that, there was a call in from the chair of community scrutiny, Hugh Williams. Really pleased Hugh's joined us here today. Hugh's joined us at the cabinet table. Before I go to Hugh, though, I think Rianne is leading on this. So if I can go to Rianne for some more background.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. No, I'll let the chair of communities lead. I'm just here just a support, really.
Okay, so Hugh, do you want to outline what the concerns were from your scrutiny committee and why you called this in?
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Hugh.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad you introduced this document, not me, on the day today. So yeah, as you've just said, I don't want to go into too much detail on the document, and you've read it, you've seen what's inside it. This was a cabinet decision made in the previous cabinet in February, and some of the members, including myself, weren't quite happy with what was being proposed, and we felt it should come into scrutiny to be scrutinized. And you know, I feel it's great what we can do this, and it's you know, it makes us an open and transparent council. And we, from the back of that, we've had a great debate on the day with some of the members are still here. So if we just go to the recommendations on page 16, starting with 3, I think what a lot of the concerns were on the day is what there wasn't any discussions with the farmers unions, the federations of young farmers, and so on. So I think that's one of the proposals or recommendations we're putting through as well. And the delegated decisions we felt were unfair. We thought that the local members should be informed, and that the local mags, they should be involved in the decision as well. And just going on, it's been again in the cabinet, going back to the cabinet decision back in the February, it was disclosed that grade 1 land would be exempt from the purchase of such land. We don't have much grade 1 land in Denbighshire. It's not what we're against this scheme, it's just getting what it works for everybody, that we're open, transparent. We're not land grabbing. That was one of the words which were used, and that we're not putting other potential young farmers at a disadvantage of us as a government buying the land. I for one, myself, outside the group now, are working closely with the AOMP on a parcel of land near Corwen, which I have informed the local member what they can purchase to put trees on. So it's not, we're not against it. It's just, we just want to get it right for the residents of Denbighshire. So it's fair, transparent, and everybody hopefully is happy on that. So happy to answer some questions. March was a long time ago, so be gentle.
Yeah, and a lot's happened since then. Okay. Thanks, Hugh. I'm grateful for that. What I'll do is I'll open it to discussion for cabinet members to make any contributions they may make, and that might be in the form of comments, contributions. But you've heard Councillor Hugh Williams, as chair, has said he'll be happy to take questions as well. So I'll open up for debate, and if anyone wants to ask you a question. Gwyneth?
Diolch Arweinydd.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Hugh. I remember being in this meeting, and there was a very interesting discussion. Personally, I agree that we as a cabinet could reconsider the original decision, looking at what the scrutiny committee felt. The one point that I have is points. In the recommendations here, 3.2, agree to reconsider the original decision. Yep, fine. But the final part, prior to reviewing its decision, and then it lists things that we agree to before we've undertaken the review. So I'd like to change the wording of that. I haven't got a problem with working with the farming unions and so on, but if we could agree, I think we need to consider, because that's what you're asking us to do, is to consider changing the wording. That we are considering points 1, 2, 3, and 4, not that we are agreeing to those before we review. I'm sure I'm happy on behalf of the group, but it's up to you as leader and the cabinet to discuss any changes you wish to put in here today.
Gwyneth, do you want to clarify what you're proposing by way of a change then?
Yes, I mean, so I have the agenda in Welsh, so I will read it in Welsh and propose the changes in Welsh.
3.2 agrees to reconsider its original decision with a view of expediting the decision-making process for purchasing land, and prior to reviewing the decision that the cabinet considers, or whilst reviewing its decision that the cabinet considers, working with the farming unions on, considers to amend the wording rather than agrees to amend the wording. Point 3. Considers that a review may be undertaken at the appropriate time. And point 4. Considers asking for. What I'm very concerned about is that these items are considerations during the review rather than things that we've agreed prior to the review. Thank you, Leader.
I just tried to frame the English version of that, and then you can tell me whether or not that's right or wrong. So in terms of the recommendation, 3.1 will be as is. 3.2, Cabinet agrees to reconsider in its original decision, and as part of that reconsideration, will consider and take into account the matters raised in paragraphs 3.2, little 1 to little 4. So what you're doing is you're agreeing to reconsider the decision and to take into account and consider the items raised by scrutiny as part.
Remove any reference to, such as in the Welsh version, point 2 would be cytuno i newid geiriad, so agree to change. I'm saying remove that.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we don't agree to change. We might agree to change, but that's
so what I'm suggesting is that what you would be doing as part of your review, you would consider the matters set out in small 1 to small 4. You're not committing to agreeing, you're committing to reviewing. And just on a broader point, just for anyone who's viewed the meeting, how calling works is that when a decision is made, scrutiny committees can call that decision in and they can consider it and make a recommendation back to Cabinet. Cabinet is not duty bound to abide by that recommendation, but you are obliged to take it into consideration before reviewing your decision. You are entitled to say, no, we're not going to review the decision, but on the basis that the proposal is that you'll just take into account those recommendations as part of that review. And I think that's the purpose of Councillor Ellis's amendment.
So essentially, Gary, the changing of the wording wouldn't change the practical procedure process anyway, would
No,
it?
so
No,
the change in the
okay.
wording would just say that Cabinet agrees to reconsider its original decision, and as part of that reconsideration, will consider and take into account the recommendations made by scrutiny set out in Roman 1 to Roman 4, and then you would have a report back at a later date on that review, at which point you would be able to take a new decision. I think that's.
Thank you. I'm just scared of the timescale. What sort of timescale we're looking at this? I thought there was a pressure for timescale rather than having to bring it back in future. Is that what you're saying, Gary?
Well, I think if scrutiny is recommending that as part of the review, the council needs to work with farming unions and the Federation of Young Farmers Clubs, then clearly there's a timescale to that, because you've got to give people an appropriate amount of time to respond, and then you've got to take into account those responses. So Cabinet may want to set a target on that, but you may want to hear from officers. I know that we have the Climate Change Programme Manager on as to what the practicalities would be around that timescale.
I think they had a timescale for this going live. That's where I'm coming from, Gary, rather than debating what the council said. I'm not sure what the timescale was of going live with this project.
Yeah, if you could bring the officer in there. Yeah.
You may want to ask Jane Hodgson to give you some indication around timescale.
Jane, thanks for joining us. You've heard the debate. Can you assist on the timescale issue, please?
Good morning. There isn't a firm timescale. The sooner we can put things into place, the sooner we'll be in a position to act more quickly if land becomes available.
Okay, thanks. So just discussing this with legal officer, and there's a suggestion that we bring this back in October. Happy with that, Hugh?
Yeah, I'm happy with that, Chair. Thank you.
Quite a detailed technical debate we've had there. Does anyone else want to come in on any of the other issues around this? So, Bobby, you've got your hand up.
Sorry. Thank you very much. As I recall, this was all done because of our commitment to carbon sequestration and ecological improvements. I'm just wondering if we change the decision, how long would you talk about consultations with farmers and young farmers, local councillors, MAGs, you talk about extra duties, land grading reports. I'm just wondering how long all this will take, because after all, we are in a climate emergency, excuse me, and I would probably like to hear the officer's opinion, and even Steve Gadd's opinion, who was quite strongly for it. So I would just like my mind put at rest, really, or even the lead member perhaps could come in on something.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bobby, and we should never lose sight of what this is about, and these are the discussions that we've been having. That you know, Hugh's right to raise these concerns for the communities he represents and his position of chair, but you're absolutely right that we shouldn't lose sight of why we're doing this, and that is to address the climate emergency that we're in at the moment. You've heard, I will bring Jane in again to address that point. But I think we've heard from her today to say that, you know, that any decision we make will have to be made quickly. And from my point of view as leader, this, if you like, further consultation exercise is something that needs to happen when it happens quickly on an expedited basis, really. And then I suppose to some extent, you know, it's over to those other interested groups, Farmers Union and Federation of Young Farmers. And perhaps I can hear from Hugh again, but Hugh has said that we all recognise that the climate change I don't want to, I'm not a member of the Young Farmers Club. I don't know anyone in the Young Farmers Club, I'll be honest. It's not in my working life a body I've had much to do with. But Hugh, can you give us some assurances that they will work quickly in any?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, everybody in this room is too old to be in the Young Farmers, but so there we are. But yeah, definitely. You know, we set a task and finishing group up for the flooding and the real gutter in the last council, and it was really successful task and finishing working group, and then we reported back to the scrutiny. And how didn't we open some gates and cleared a lot of muddy water, if I can say that. And it was, Jason, it'd be worth you looking at that document, and I'm sure that the senior management will have a chat with you on that. It was successful. People weren't talking. NRW, Natural Resources Wales, Welsh Water, the unions, they were all fighting like cats and dogs. Now they're all sitting around the table talking, and I think this is where we need to go on everything we do. Sit around the table and work it out before we leap. But you know, we're all, everybody in this room is supporting climate change. I am, for one. I probably planted more trees than anybody in this room, so 100% with it. We just need to get it right the first time. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Hugh, for those assurances. Okay, so I've got Gwyneth, Barry, Steve Gadders indicated he wishes to speak, and then I can move in. I acknowledge you've got your hand as well, so I'll go to Gwyneth first, please.
Thank you, Leader. I would like to ask the Chief Legal Officer, please, to just explain the process here, because the previous cabinet has passed and agreed that the process of purchasing land will change. Now, the scrutiny committee is asking us as a new cabinet to revisit this and reconsider that decision. But in the meantime, until we've reviewed the decision, I took it that the decision made by the previous cabinet stood, which means that there's no problem with what Councillor Bobby Feely has raised, because officers are able to move forward with purchasing land quickly. Is that correct or not? No. What the law says is when the cabinet makes a decision, members of scrutiny have the right to call in that decision. They have to give notice of call in signed by 5 members who are not cabinet members. And if we get that notice of call in, then we are not able to implement the decision. So the decision is deferred until the scrutiny committee has had an opportunity to consider the matter and discuss the issue. And if the committee discusses and are happy for the decision to be implemented, then that's the end and it can be implemented. But if they make recommendations asking the cabinet to reconsider, then the decision is still in abeyance until the reconsideration has been undertaken. So this decision was just to change some of the process with regards to purchasing land. We're still able to purchase land. We've got to follow the processes we had in place prior to this decision. So what you're agreeing to do is to reconsider the decision, but by doing so, taking into consideration some of the things that the scrutiny committee have put in the recommendations. You're not agreeing to do them, you're agreeing to take them into consideration, and then in October, hopefully you'll be able to make a new decision.
I agree with all parties here, what Hugh's brought to the table about land. And I don't think, and I think it's been mentioned before, there's no intention whatsoever of going for grade A land. It's about trying to get to the auctions as quickly as possible and being able to get land as cost cutting as possible to be able to help with the climate change. And Bobby, you know, you're right. We can't hang about climate. You've only got to see last week when a housing estate within London was burnt down. You know, if we get into situations like that, we've got a major problem. The world has got a major problem. So we do have to try and work fast. We do have to come up with the right solutions, but by both sides, and I understand Hugh's side, but I do, I'm almost certain, don't hang me for this, but I'm almost certain we have contacted the Farmers Union and the Young Farmers Club, and we didn't get a response. I'm almost certain the old cabinet I'm talking about now, and I'm certain that did take place. But there's no reason in going back to them, getting a response, and sitting around the table and looking at this again. Thanks very much.
Steve, can I bring you in, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, yeah. I mean, I've kept my hand up, but Gary's really covered it. What I was going to say was that the project itself is live. It's still, you know, we will still buy land. We are currently in the middle of purchasing some land in St Asaph that's gone through all the correct approvals process. So this is about speeding up that process. So I just wanted to clarify that, you know, the project is live. It's not that the project is being stalled. It's just that what we were finding was that we were losing out on the speed of some of the auctions. So that's what, and I think we have missed out on at least one parcel of land since April due to this, you know, the need for the speed of decision making. However, what I would say is that we need to get this right, because there's no point us speeding up decision making at the front end if you're not happy with it as a cabinet and council, and everything gets called into scrutiny, because that's counterproductive anyway. So we need everyone to be happy with the process, and if that takes a couple of months to get right, then that's the right thing to do, isn't it?
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Mervyn Parry, you wanted to speak? You might have to bring your chair with you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief one, really. On page 16, 3.2, the small 2, agree to amend the wording of a proposed scheme where actually consulting with the local members and the local mags. Like Hugh's mentioned before, I don't think anybody was against anybody with the planting of the trees. It's just keeping people informed in the local area of what's happening, because although, you know, grading, I mean, that's what I do. I'm an agronomist. I look after land, and, you know, we haven't got much grade 1 land in the Vale of Clwyd, possibly maybe 50, 70 acres. But it's what's important is that we're not actually on where we were coming from, really, was that if there's a piece of land that's going up for sale, and I know that it goes up for auction and you have a short time and window for that to happen. If the local knowledge is important in all this, so if happened to be a piece of land came in St Asaph or Llangollen or Llandurnog where I am, and we knew that maybe a local farmer or a local landowner wanted that, if grade 3, grade 4 land might be important to him to finalise his bit of land, that if Denbighshire went there and bought it under his nose or outbid him under that, it would be a difficult thing for a local member to support. So it's just been, if we have that chat about with the local member and the local mags, it can happen very quickly. We don't have to wait for months for that to happen. We don't want that to happen because we know how auctions work. It's just having that consultation thing, and it was the really to consult rather than notify was the important one. That I think rather than being told was to have the consultations. That's all it was, Chair.
Thanks, Mervyn. And you've heard the debate in relation to what Councillor Ellis has said. And Merv, as a representative of that community, are you happy with that? Yeah, okay. So we seem to resolve the tension that exists, just quickly, Bobby, between the argument on consultation and bringing farming communities with us, and the time issue about you know, that we need to move quickly to acquire land that becomes available. I think the discussion today, we've narrowed that. So I know you've indicated to speak, but just I will bring in. But I think Gwyneth, you'll need to propose, and we'll need a seconder on your amendments. And Gary can note the wording. So that's the technical side of things. Bobby and then Hugh.
I just
Williams.
wanted to come back very quickly and just say that I know every individual's opinion is important, particularly farmers and so on, and we're used to hearing about the problems of farming, but we're talking about a global climate emergency. And I am just concerned with all the things that have been mentioned within this recommendation, that with the best will in the world, it could take too long.
I think as often the proofs of the pudding is in the eating, isn't it? And Steve has mentioned today that this is a process that's ongoing. We're already looking at parcels of land, buying parcels of land. We are going to review this in October. And if there is an element that it's slowing it down, then we can review it. If it isn't, and we're bringing those communities with us, as Steve Gadd has said, we've got to get it right and get that balance. And we're looking at that balance. I don't know whether other members want to come in, but I think that there is a tension. You're absolutely right, and the bias should be towards our carbon reduction targets. But as Steve has said, and there's discussions, it's important we bring people with us. If there are delays, then we might have to review this and say, well, okay, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and do it. So that's the tension, isn't it, and the balance. Hugh, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Great discussion, and it's thank you for let me have the opportunity to come today to represent the panel. We mustn't forget food security. We're 2 weeks off. Our shelves and supermarkets have been emptied as well. I hear what Bobby says. I'm on board. We're all in this together. We are. The parcel of land in Corrowen in question, which was introduced by myself to the OMB, I've been told that could take 6 months to buy. Maybe we should start looking internally at speeding up the process. But obviously, I know it has to be valued and district valuer, but maybe we could look at that as well. Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the time.
Harry?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a balancing act here, isn't there? We've got this climate and ecological change on our doorsteps. We've got farmers that need to protect grade 1 land and land for growing. You just mentioned about the shells. So there's a big balancing act here. But I just wonder from today, can we ask officers to contact the Farmers Union and the Young Farmers Club as soon as possible now to get a view from them, so it'll help the process for us going forward. Thank you.
And as leader, what I would say, if we do, with Gwyneth's amendment, if we do go down this process of being more inclusive, after we're at the risk of sounding harsh, if there is procrastination, if there is delay, then that's going to inform the review going forward, isn't it? And if you want consultation, if you want that conversation, you've got to be on board and getting this process through quickly. Otherwise, it won't. Otherwise, it won't happen. There won't be that consultation. We'll probably go back to a position that the original decision was. We'll be giving you the opportunity to come on board here now.
Yeah, 100% on board. And if you want us to start up a task and finishing group with the said people in question, happy to do. But can you please take on board what I've said about the delay of 6 months from introducing a parcel of land to completing a parcel of land? We're talking about stopping here till coming back here in October, where the parcel of land in question, which I brought to the table, is taken in the region of 6 months. So it's already broken. We need to fix that as well, if I can say that. Thank you, Chair.
So we have an amendment from Councillor Ellis. Do you want to take us through the technicalities and the wording around that? So what we're voting on.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to be clear, again on the process, the previous cabinet made a decision. It was called into scrutiny. That decision is suspended from being implemented until such time as the scrutiny call-in has been considered. The scrutiny recommendations are that the cabinet reconsiders the decision. And the recommendation that is before you now, subject to the amendments, is that 3.1 is fine. 3.2, that Cabinet agrees to reconsider its original decision with a view to expediting the decision-making process for purchasing land, and that as part of that review, you will take into account and consider the matters raised in paragraphs Roman 1 to Roman 4, and that you will ask officers to bring you a report back on that review to be considered by Cabinet in October. So just to be clear, that means that whilst officers can continue to buy land under the existing processes, the expedited decision-making process is still suspended until such time as you can reconsider it. Okay, just so everybody's clear about what they're voting on.
If you want to drag this out, we've got to get it right. Hugh and then Emrys.
Happy to set up a task and finishing group in September if you want, from community scrutiny. Rian's probably screaming at me there, but if that helps and we could deliver back in October.
Well, I think that's probably a discussion to be taken, because Cabinet can't decide what scrutiny does. So that's a separate conversation. That may or may not be part of this review, but what Cabinet is doing is it's asking officers to bring a report to it in October so that it can reconsider the decision, and it will take into account the responses that have had from any consultation, and it will take into account those items in subparagraphs 2 to 4 in order to frame a decision, which will either be to confirm the original decision or to make a different decision.
So on the outcome today, I will take that to chairs and scrutiny on Thursday and hopefully set up that on, depends on the outcome of this today.
Emrys, if you can be quick, time's ticking
Yeah,
on, we need to
so
deal with
the
Grenette's
only
amendment.
Just to say that I second Councillor Ellis's amendment proposal, that we make the changes as noted and that we proceed now in the spirit of today's discussion, and that the consultation happens from today onwards and has previously happened with the previous cabinets, but that we continue with the consultation with all interested parties, including the farming unions and also the young farmers and landowners. So very happy to second. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring Gary in, and then we'll put it to the vote. I just want to say thanks to Hugh for coming today. That message has got to come back loud and clear, though, Hugh. There's got to be that engagement for this to happen quickly, because if it doesn't, we will go back to a delegated decision situation. Barry has mentioned there was a little bit of lack of engagement previously. So the ball's in the court of the farmers union. You know, my door's open. They can speak to me. You can be the middleman if you like. But I want to stress that that's the view. That's my view today. They have to be on board to make this process happen quickly.
Thank you, Jason.
That's the payoff for more consultation.
Okay, thank you. I'm predicting the outcome of this before you go to the vote then, but thank you.
We had the amendment from Gwynedd and proposal seconded by Emrys. So are we in favour as a cabinet? Okay, thanks, Hugh.
Thank you.
I'll speak to you again. So that was a comprehensive. So agenda item 6, and this is the report on the Shared Prosperity Fund. I'm sure most people present know the background to the Shared Prosperity Fund. It's part of the Levelling Up agenda. It's the sort of revenue element of the Levelling Up agenda. It replaces the European structural funds. That was funding that was a major source of local government funding over many years. This replaces it. I'll bring Liz as the lead officer in shortly. We need to submit a regional investment plan. The Prosperity Fund is at its early stages. Denbighshire stands to have £25 million. There's 3 themes to the funding streams: community in place, supporting local businesses and people and skills. We're very much in the early stages, and it's how we want to take this forward, and that's the report before you today. So on that note, I'll bring Liz in, if I may.
Borodar Palp, nice to see you all. So the Shared Prosperity Fund is part of the UK government's Levelling Up agenda. The fund has been allocated on a county basis, but we have to develop a regional investment plan. So we know that Denbighshire has got somewhere in the region of £25.5 million allocated to us. And we are working with colleagues across North Wales to identify the priorities for each of our counties and consider which interventions that are outlined by UK government are the ones that we're going to prioritise. Have a fairly rough idea of how much of our allocation we're going to allocate towards the different interventions, and have a kind of a starting idea of what sort of outcomes and outputs we might achieve with those interventions and with that investment. Unusually, we are not at this point being asked to outline the projects that we are going to deliver in order to achieve those outputs and outcomes. That's the next stage. So the Regional Investment Plan document is in effect an application form that we need to submit to the UK government by the 1st of August. The work has been going on for the last few weeks with colleagues across the region, and as you can imagine, has gathered pace in the last couple of weeks since the report was submitted for this meeting. So one thing I will add is that it was agreed last week that once we submitted our regional investment plan, we will develop a prospectus for North Wales, and with that will become a public document that we share with stakeholders, and in that we will show the interventions that we've prioritised across the region, and we'll also explain how stakeholders can send us expressions of interest in terms of drawing down funding in order to be able to deliver projects to help us achieve those outcomes and outputs. Just the other thing to mention is that there is up to 4% of our money can be used to administer the programme. We think that we'll spend significantly less than 4% on that, even though we will be recruiting people in each of the 6 counties and within Gwynedd who are proposed to be the lead local authority with regard to this. So we haven't at this point costed out those support roles. So we've just at this point explained to UK government that we expect full spend. The other thing to note is that the regional investment plan requires a regional partnership structure and a local partnership structure to oversee the delivery of the programme. Some counties already have partnership structures that would fit the bill, so they'll probably use those structures to oversee the programme. In Denbighshire, I don't think we've quite got the partnership structure that would fit the bill, so we do need to set that up. That partnership group doesn't have any governance per se, that's down to the council, but it assures stakeholders that we're engaging appropriately through the delivery of the programme, and it assures the UK government that we're engaging appropriately as well. So I just wanted to outline that, and the latest discussions were that we might just bring the chairs of those groups together on a quarterly basis to inform the regional element of the delivery. as you can tell, hopefully from the report and from my description, this is something that we're learning as we go along. It's a new process, it's a new structure, but we're feeling confident that we'll be able to hit the ground running once UK government has signed off our investment plan. There are a number of decisions that that I'm asking Cabinet for today, and I can come to those. Or would you like me to open up for questions first?
Should we open up for questions? Any questions from the Cabinet on the Shared Prosperity Fund? Barry?
Yeah, thank you for that, Liz. One question, can some of this money be used to back up the programmes that we've already set out for the Levelling Up Fund, or has it got to be kept separately?
They're separate programmes. So the Levelling Up Fund is a capital fund, and Shared Prosperity has an element of capital but is largely revenue. So one of the things that we'd like to do is use Shared Prosperity to maximise the impact of the Levelling Up projects. So if there are any if there are any revenue projects that could be brought to bear to any of the capital projects in Levelling Up, then we get best value for, you know, we get best maximum impact of those Levelling Up projects. So we wouldn't use Shared Prosperity to mop up anything from Levelling Up necessarily, but they are part and parcel of the same programme from UK government. So there's no hard and fast rules about that.
Thanks, Liz. I guess that answer addresses the impact question, the impact that the Prosperity Fund has to have in terms of, you know, addressing underlying issues, not just tackling symptoms, and you know, it's not there to as you said, to pinch your phrase, mop up the Levelling Up Fund, but it's to sort of supercharge that to make sure that we're addressing those symptomatic problems. So thank you, Barry, for the question and for the answer.
I noticed, Liz, in the report, you talk about needing some staff, to recruit some staff in order to support this funding project. Will that come out of the 25 million, or is that extra?
No, that will come out of the 25 million. So there is up to 4% of the 25 million we can use to administer the fund. We don't think we'll use that much either locally or across the region, but the projects will need to we're expecting to fund from that 25 million pounds things like commissioning officers, some finance support, etc., that are more about delivering the project, but it will all come from within the fund.
Thanks. So to that extent, Bobby, I think that sort of answers your self-answering question. There will be a cost in staff. The UK government has deemed that 4% of what we're going to get is enough. So, I mean, I don't want to reopen old wounds, but this is indeed, you know, one of the difficulties, choosing my words carefully here, in that this is a funding stream that we are having to engage with because there's no other show in town post Brexit. I'll leave it at that. Yourself, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for Liz, really. As I read the paper, there seems to be a lot of regional activity being done, but very little locally. And the question I want to answer myself is, well, what is our priorities? If this train is the only train in town, as you say, Jace, we need to get make sure that we're ready. So it comes across in the paper that there's a lot around the structure, but not actually much focus on what we're going to go after for our bucks, if you know what I mean.
I don't want to preempt Liz's answer, but I guess that's indicative of where we are, that it is the regional investment plan. That's the first step. And then we're going to drill down deeper. But sorry, jumped in.
No, that's fine. Yeah, the paper focuses on the structure because we're asking Cabinet to support the proposals with regard to the regional lead, etc. But I would say that actually the way we've been developing the regional investment plan is bottom up rather than top down. So we've been looking at what our local priorities are and what we would like to deliver locally first. And after that, we will look to see where we have priorities in common with neighbouring authorities and where it might be more efficient or more impactful to work together across sub-regionally or regionally. But it very much comes from the local needs in the first place. Just to give you some assurance also, there are three pillars of this fund. There's people and skills, supporting local business and communities in place. The way we're thinking currently, just over 40% of the investment will go into the communities in place theme. So that's very much about local communities and investing in local communities. So I hope that gives you some assurance, Hugh.
It gives me some assurance, but obviously you know a percentage of where you want to invest the money, but we don't know the details of that yet. But
yeah, of course.
What I'm probably asking in a roundabout way is, what is the role of the elected member in this process in getting to that decision of where the money is spent in our communities? I don't see that in this structure really.
Yeah, no, that's fair comment. There isn't any, there's no mandate from UK government with regard to involving local members, but it's in our interest to involve local members. So I would expect us to be involving town and community councils and local mags in promoting the opportunity to bid, to submit an expression of interest, and also in terms of identifying those projects that we want to prioritise going forward. So I do see local engagement there and local members being heavily involved in that.
I'd just add to that, and to answer your question, Hugh, that there's a process, and we just it's what we bring to the table as local members. We need to work on this. Again, at the risk of it getting political, you've talked about community councils and county councils not being engaged. One of the, I would agree with this, one of the criticisms of the Levelling Up Fund is the UK government isn't even speaking properly at a higher level to the Welsh government on this, and is bypassing the structures of devolution. That's probably a discussion for another day, but whilst we're on, I want to make that point whilst we're on that theme. Thanks.
Yeah, I think fair point, but I think for me, if we're setting up a process or a structure as this paper is, I think there should be in the detail of the local members and the communities are involved. I think that's quite important, really, because I think sometimes the priorities of the paid staff and the local communities are very different. I think we are the sort of link between the two, so to communicate that. So I think if you would see it and to amend it in here somewhere, just there is noted, really, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Can I just come back on that? I think that's a fair point, and I think it's probably worth coming back with local arrangements, with more information about local arrangements to get those signed off. The paper, as it's been presented, has been mirrored across the 6 local authorities. So this is very much about the regional structure and the regional process to support the development and delivery of the regional action plan. But I think that there's very good reason to come back with more detail about how that might work, how that might be how it might be supported locally. And in that, I'd outlined the local partnership group as well and their involvement. So I think that's a fair comment, and I'd be happy to come back with that if members are supportive of that.
Yeah, I mean, to address your point, Hugh, and just to carry on from Liz, I mean, that member engagement for all of us is very important, and that's really the next step. That will be the next stage, and Liz can present on that, and we can all engage in that process. But right now, this paper is the plans for the regional structure going forward. Okay. If there's no more questions, and I'm looking at the screen as well for those zooming in. I apologise, you did have your hand up before. I do apologise.
No, that's fine. And I won't be too political, but I'll just make the point that reading the documents, it's quite clear that the funding being done in this way makes it more challenging. And what worries me is when the funding's done in this way, there's clearly a crossover in responsibility and existing targets. So how are Welsh Government going to be involved in this? Because I know we will try to work with them, but there's some big questions here when you're touching on education, when you're touching on targets for the environment. How is that going to work? Because it just doesn't feel right. And if you're going to devolve power, you should be involving that nation more.
Excellent point, and I agree with you. And that's, this is probably a debate for another day, not around, the paper before us on how we're progressing the regional investment plan. There are discussions on, I've seen a letter from Welsh Government, which is they're unhappy about the bypassing the constitutional devolved, and you've mentioned it yourself in education. It's a conversation for another day, I would say.
Okay, and I'll ask it, for this to move on, it needs to be sorted out. Otherwise, at some point, it stops us, doesn't it? So it's great the money's coming, but it will stop us. So I hope that is sorted. I'll leave it there.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Can I just add to that, Jason, if you don't mind? We are working closely with WLGA and Welsh Government colleagues so that we have some read across for all the regional investment plans for Wales, we're working closely with Welsh Government to make sure that we're making best use of the funding, we haven't got duplication going on, and that we're filling the gaps where we can. And also in terms of identifying the outcomes and outputs that we want to achieve, we're reading those across from existing targets that we've got from various strategies and plans that we have in place. So it's challenging, it's difficult, it's complex, but we are keeping those conversations going.
Reese, apologies. The screen is quite far away from where I'm sitting, and I'm relying on it. Say when hands are up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leader. Just to reiterate what Liz said and to answer the question from Councillor Hugh-Hilditch Robert, working with community councils, town councillors and the city council is one of the priorities of this council. And it's one of the responsibilities of cabinet members. So thank you, Leader.
Okay, there's no further questions. Again, it was an interesting discussion, and I think we've talked about the report before us, the mechanics of the investment strategy and how we're going to deliver. There's a wider discussion above that about the shared prosperity fund itself, how it's replaced the structural funds and the interaction. It's an interesting discussion. So if we go to the recommendations, the approval is given to further develop the shared prosperity fund programme within Denbighshire and regionally through officer input in line with the principles set out in the report. The delegated authority is given to the Chief Executive and the lead member for economic growth and tackling deprivation to develop and submit Denbighshire's priorities for inclusion in the regional investment strategy to enable the programme funding to be drawn down. The proposal to ask Gwynedd County Council to act as the lead body to submit the regional investment strategy to UK government and to lead subsequent programme delivery is supported. So can someone move? We'll accept the recommendations. Moved by Julie, seconded by Barry. And if we go to a vote on the accepting the recommendations, that's unanimous. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you. We're moving on to agenda item 7. It revolves the procurement of new temporary emergency accommodation support service as part of the homelessness prevention programme. And Rhys has joined us on the screen, so I'll hand over to Rhys, please. Rhys, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you, Jason. Good afternoon from Sweden, or good morning to you in Wales. I'm very pleased to be able to introduce this paper for your attention. Like every other local authority in Wales, a number of citizens in Denbighshire are homeless and in temporary accommodation, bed and breakfast accommodation. The numbers have increased over the years, and being in a bed and breakfast accommodation for a long time isn't acceptable for anyone. It is also very costly to keep people in bed and breakfast accommodation. Following on from the good work that was done during the term of the previous council, the officers of Denbighshire County Council have been working for a long time to get the ones who are homeless out of temporary bed and breakfast accommodation and into permanent accommodation that prepares them to go back to a permanent home. I'm sure that we all support that. In order to do this, they need to receive support to reduce the risk that they become homeless again. There is a need for the support provided to them to be comprehensive and available day and night. So the intention, if the Cabinet agrees, to offer a contract which will be enforced for 5 years but will be regularly monitored, a contract to provide comprehensive 24-hour support to people who are coming out of bed and breakfast accommodation. I'm very supportive of this scheme, which has been in the pipeline for a number of years, and I now feel that we're very close to being able to move forward with it. So if you've got any questions about this, I'm pleased to see that there are officers available who will be able to answer your questions. I can see Nigel's name on the screen there, for example. So thank you very much for being able to introduce the report. Has anybody got any questions? Thank you.
Any questions? No. And outside of Cabinet, Bobby?
Yes, thank you, Rhys. It's obviously a very worthwhile project, but a couple of points to clarify, which I couldn't see in the report. This is a scheme, I gather it's somewhere between 9 and 10 million over the time. I just wondered how many have you worked out it will help? And is it at the expense of others who may be waiting for houses? I noticed the funding is coming, part of the funding is coming from the HSG delivery plan. Where are there plans across Denbighshire? And the other thing I would like clarified is how long is temporary? Is there a set number of weeks, months? And what if at the end of that temporary time, if they still have nowhere to go, would they remain there?
Do you want me to pick up on that, please? Thanks, Bobby. Just to pick up on the first point with regard to the actual length of the contract and the people who are going to be supporting. As it is at the moment, we currently have approximately 185 households in temporary emergency accommodation. I mean, aside to just this actual project that we're proposing, we do have the early intervention and prevention project, which we are hoping is going to almost slow that feed into homelessness down. And that contract sort of starts around September. With the proposal that we do have there, if you look at some of the figures, we're looking in the region of, with the funding available, that we could be supporting up to 100 to 120 households a year at a rate of around, £2,000 to support the activities that are required to move them on. So at the moment, it's difficult to put an exact figure on that. However, as we do, reduce the flow into homelessness, then what we're proposing will support all the people that we will have sitting within bed and breakfast, or sorry, a temporary emergency accommodation. With regard to the length or the expected time spent, I mean, part of our rapid rehousing plans which we're developing is that we make that as brief an experience as possible. However, what we've got to be very mindful of is that it is very much person-centered as well. So, not all individuals will be ready to move on straight away. There could be some that, for whatever reasons they are within temporary accommodation, and some of the issues that they're facing, that they may well need to stay in longer. So it has to be, on a case-by-case scenario, really. Sorry, what was the third element of that question, Bobby?
It was where well, it was whereabouts across Denbighshire.
Okay, as it stands at the moment, I mean, predominantly most of our temporary emergency accommodation is in the north of the county, and mainly in the Rill area. I mean, we have obviously identified Epworth Lodge, which is in the process of that's going through tender now for the renovation works. And it's very difficult to, I mean, and I know we do have a county-wide issue here, but the support will be right across Denbighshire. Predominantly the service will be based at our own emergency accommodation facility like Epworth Lodge. However, the facility will be across the county. So at the moment we do have temporary accommodation in the south of the county. So this project will extend right across wherever we do have it.
Okay.
Any more questions from looking at the screen? Wynne? You may be on mute, Wynne.
Apologies. Nigel, you mentioned that we've got, properties in the north and the south. Roughly how many have we got that will accommodate all these people?
Well, at the moment, we have 182 households in temporary emergency accommodation. We do have, at the moment, there is capacity probably for another 20 households. So in all, there's around 210, but that is, again, that's all bed and breakfast at the moment, and hotels. The only secure property we have at the moment as our own in-house facility is Epworth Lodge, as I mentioned, which that will probably, once it's gone through tender, be available from probably in the last quarter of this year now. And then obviously we need to do a lot of work to try and identify going forward you know, further units for our own in-house accommodation.
Are there any in the pipeline at the moment, or is that still something we're looking at?
That's something we're still looking at the moment. So yeah, we don't have any sort of secure plans at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Okay, if there's Amris.
Ie, dim ond mwy na lai gefnogi'r hyn mae Wyn.
Yes, just to support what Wyn has just referred to now, I would like to say that it is important that we do our best to avoid taking anybody who appears to be homeless comes out of their own community, so that we do make a serious effort to get units across the north and the south of the county, so that we've got provision for those who find themselves in this unfortunate situation.
Okay, thank you, Amris. Okay, I think those figures are quite sobering, really, and illustrate the real need for this project to go ahead. So on that note, Rhys, can I ask you to go through the recommendations for Cabinet then?
Iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn, Arweinydd.
Yes, thank you very much, Leader. The recommendations under point 3.1 that the Cabinet confirms starting of the procurement process as third, and then 3.2 that the Cabinet confirms that they have read and taken into account the wellbeing assessment, Appendix 3, where there is an assessment of the HSG delivery plan. So I recommend this, I propose this to Cabinet as the recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
Julie, and those in favour of taking the recommendation? That's unanimous. Diolch, thank you. What comfort break, or do you want to crack on? Any views?
I'd like a short break.
Okay.
Please.
Back at past.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone. Welcome back. Continuing with the agenda, we are on agenda item 8, the Sustainable Communities for Learning Band B. I'll hand over to Councillor German, Lead Member for Education, on this report. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Arweinydd. Cynghorydd Jill German ydw i, aelod arweinol.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm Jill German. I'm the Lead Member for Education, Children and Families, and Learning Welsh. I'd like to introduce today's report, and I'll switch to English now.
I'm Councillor Jill German. I'm the Lead Member for Education, Children and Families, and I'm Learning Welsh. I'd like to present the report today on Sustainable Communities for Learning, formerly known as 21st Century Schools, and this is about Band B. So this report considers the findings from a review by the Modern Education Programme Board, and it looks at the prioritisation process that was used as requested by Council in January 2022. The request was made following a notion of motion, which originated from concerns over the condition of Prestatyn High School. I would like to speak more about Prestatyn High School following the presentation of the report and question from members, Leader, if I may. So I would like to come in at the end. But for now, I'd like to hand over to Geraint Davies, who's Head of Education, to present the report. Diolch.
Bore da. Yes, as Jill, the lead member, has mentioned now, is that I think it was on the 27th of April, possibly, that the Modernising Education Board did meet to look at the at the sort of determination of priorities for the Band B of the Sustainable Communities for Learning. It was at the request of the council that we looked at this. Piece of work was undertaken because obviously we accept that there's a large number of schools that require investment. You know, we have got 55 school buildings varying in age from you know, being relatively young to being older in building terms, and you know, there are a number of them that require a degree of investment. However, the funding we have is what we have, so obviously we need to prioritize that funding where the need is greater. So we have worked with the buildings department, with the engineers and the surveyors who have re-looked at the sort of prioritization for the spending of the Sustainable Communities Grant, which is the Band B. And I am not the expert in buildings, I have to say, but they do look at things like, you know, decorations, furniture, windows, doors, sanitary services, electrical services, conditions of walls, ceilings, everything like that. And then they come up with a judgment of A, B, C, or D. So A being good and D being bad. And as part of the work undertaken at the request of the council, it was to look to make sure that the assessments were accurate, the assessments were a true reflection of the education estate, and the outcome of that piece of work was that the prioritization was correct, and that the schools earmarked for Band B investment were the ones with the highest need. There is a bit more detail in the appendices, but you know, I won't labour the point. I won't go on and on. So you know, we're happy, and James Curran is on the call remotely, who will also be able to go into sort of greater detail if required. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraint. Diolch yn fawr. So I'll open this to debate. Are there any questions or comments from Cabinet? Harry?
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Yeah, right. This is the second bout of money that we've had for the schools. Is there any murmurs that there'll be another round of money coming forward after this tranche?
Yeah, well, obviously the first, you know, Band A was very, very successful, and you know, we're embarking on the Band B proposals now. If I had a crystal ball, I would be able to answer accurately, possibly on a Band C. You know, will it be Band C? Will it be called something different? I know there are discussions at the moment around what, you know, future funding might look like, but you know, I think the expectation is that there will be future funding. You know, who knows what, you know, it was 21st Century Schools grant, now it's the Sustainable Communities for Learning grant. You know, there will be hopefully future funding, but it might be called something different, and the priorities might be different, you know, at that moment in time. But you know, with I can't give 100% assurance that there will be, unfortunately.
Let's declare an interest. I know that this doesn't focus on any particular school other than Prestatyn schools. I am a governor on a school Bryn Hyfryd governing body, and naturally I will be expressing that I'm disappointed that it's not possible to include other schools that need attention, such as a school Bryn Hyfryd and primary schools in this band, and I do hope that they get the deserved attention in the future, when hopefully there's an additional opportunity like a Band C, as Councillor Barry Mellor has mentioned.
Okay, thank you, Emrys.
Yeah, if just the ymateb
Just to respond to Emrys's comment, yes, we do accept that there are other schools who need investment, and it is frustrating that there isn't sufficient funding to go around all schools. But what I would say is that there are other sources of funding which come from Welsh Government. In the past years, we've had the buildings maintenance grants, which has been fairly substantial for this authority, and we do use those other funding sources, which are in addition to the Band B funding, to seek to respond to the needs of the other schools, which aren't getting the major investment through Band B currently. But again, the other grants that we receive, they are never going to meet everybody's needs. So we're always prioritizing. So we do prioritize when we receive these grants. Recently, we have prioritized physics and chemistry laboratories in order to raise the standards. So as we hopefully receive more funding from Welsh Government for different projects, we will use that money to try to meet the needs of every school by giving them all fair play.
Thank you, Geraint. Deal. Okay. Any further questions or comments on this item? Okay. Jill, you indicated you want to talk more about Prestatyn High, and then we'll go to the recommendations.
Yes, please, if I may. So at the beginning of the meeting, I did declare a personal interest that I have children who attend Prestatyn High. I'm also a former pupil, so this is a matter dear to my heart. So as a Prestatyn member, I had the pleasure of visiting Prestatyn High School recently, along with Councillor Jason McClellan, who is also a Prestatyn member. And we had a tour of the school buildings and an honest discussion with the head teacher there and with the chair of governors regarding issues related to this motion. As Appendix 2 of the report sets out, there have been buildings improvements made in recent years, including the science labs and the toilet blocks, and it was brilliant to see those. However, there are agreed works that remain outstanding, and immediate priorities still to be addressed within the 5-year programme of investment developed with school and local members in 2017. I do have a hot off the press update here. I have made it my business as lead member to ask for an update on this. Just briefly, there's work that's part of the improvement programme for the car park, and a company has been taken on to progress this work. The covered walkway that features in Prestatyn High School's plans is moving forward, and there doesn't look to be any issues there from a planning perspective, which is which is great. And accessibility in the school, which was flagged up as a major concern when we visited, is on the forward work programme for buildings, and it will be progressed as soon as possible. And I will be keeping an eye on that from this moment on. So as a new lead member for education, and also now a member of the Modernising Education Programme Board, I will be making sure that we push forward with agreed works at the first opportunity. I will ensure that timely progress towards addressing the school's immediate priorities is made, and I will work closely with officers, school leaders and governors towards securing the best possible learning environment for the pupils at the school going forward, using every power available to me. I do feel it's important at this point to point out that particularly after recent negative press regarding the school, that although buildings are obviously important, a building does not a school make. Prestatyn High School is a school at the heart of its community, leading the way with initiatives such as the award-winning Discrimination It Stops With Me campaign, its on-site nurture provision, and its ever-expanding multi-agency working with local partners to improve outcomes for every pupil. That said, physical environment does matter. And it ensures positive learning experiences, it provides equal access, and very importantly, it helps to develop a positive self-image and aspiration. So really, I want the staff, governors, pupils and parents of Prestatyn High School to know that I get it, really. There's a lot of investment can be seen in the other secondary schools in Denbighshire's coastal area, and it's only natural to want to see similar facilities at Prestatyn High School because they are their nearest neighbours. So I will work closely with officers and the school towards achieving improvements, and offer my assurance today that this will be staying firmly on my radar during my term, and I will be looking at it closely and I won't be letting it go. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Before we go to the recommendations, I'm sorry, Wynne, again, the screen's quite far away. I noticed you had your hand up, so do you want to come in?
Yeah, don't worry, leader. I realise that it's difficult for you to see everybody at the same time. I just wanted to ask, we've got the school meal, I wanted to ask, all right, really, the school meals programme that is coming up. How much does that affect our own funding? Are we having to find monies to go towards that, and is possibly affecting Plan B? Also, I'd like to support what the Lead for Education says, in that every child deserves a good learning environment, and I want to give her my support in everything that I think she could do to help the environment at Prestatyn High. Thank you.
Thanks, Wynne.
Thank you. I'm going to call James Curran to this now, because I know he's the one that crunches the numbers and understands the detail with the funding. James.
Yeah, in terms of the funding for the free school meals rollout, etc., there's separate funding coming through from capital, but also there'll be consideration for the revenue implications as well for the rollout of the programme. So as of the 1st of September, free school meals will be rolled out in reception for reception age pupils, and then later on during the school term around Easter, it should be for years 1 and 2, but there is a separate a capital stream that's come forward for some of the initial works, and I think there's dialogue going on between local authorities and Welsh Government regarding future works that will be required moving forward. So in terms of the first phase of works that we're looking at, that'll be partly covered by the capital works, and then we need to look at what the future requirements are going to be capital wise for the future rollout. So that's all pupils from reception through to year 6. The pledge that from Welsh Government can be met by our schools in Denbighshire. So there will be revenue implications, but that will be we're trying to we've been over the last couple of weeks promoting the rollout of or the take up of free school meals. Communication's gone to schools and is being heavily promoted on Denbighshire through social media and Facebook, Twitter, etc. So we're hoping that there will be again a strong take up, so that we can ensure that all issues are met in terms of potential implications of revenue from this change.
Okay.
Thank you very much, James.
James. Hugh.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to address the lead member, because it's the first time on this topic that a Prestatyn councillor has actually been around the school and understood the issues correctly. So it was refreshing to have somebody speaking from a position of knowledge on the topic. I think I want to make a point which I suppose as a backbencher I can make it easier, which is what I wouldn't want the council to become is a lobbying of motions for investment in my backyard school. Along with what Jill has just said, I can make the same case for a school covered in Rhythm. Because there are room with damps, that are roofs falling in. There's this in a number of our schools, but what this revisit of this piece of work does is actually back up that the process we have is a fair and a true process, that actually We have the priorities right. We've double checked it after 5 years and it's still right. And for those of you serving your communities, it is frustrating when you are being asked about the school. You know, I'm in a situation in Ruthin where we have 2 newish primary schools, but we have an older one which needs addressing, but that was addressed years ago when the other 2s weren't. So it is a balancing act. So I just want to say, really, I'm glad this has come back. I'm glad that the process has come to the conclusion it has, because that's what I defended at the time. So I think we can have confidence in our processes that we are in the right place. So diolch.
And to extend from that, Hugh, we don't want to be using this as a political football, which perhaps may have been done in the past.
I'll actually,
Not from anyone in this room.
No, not for anyone in this room, but it was on December when it was on a motion, and I was waiting at home, and the chair decided at 2 o'clock to cancel the meeting, and I was ready. But I had a month to cool down, so it was a different reply a month afterwards.
Jill, did you want to come in?
Yes, I do. So thank you, Hugh. I'd really appreciate your comments, and I know that this was something that you worked hard on at the time. So I just want to say that I completely agree that the comments that I've made regarding Prestatyn High School are very much based on the programme that's already been put together. It isn't looking at, well, you know, it's my children's school, so therefore I'd like this, this and this. You're absolutely right. Every child in Denbighshire matters. And this process has to be fair and it has to be done correctly. And this report has shown that you know, everything went through the proper channels. We looked at the maintenance of the buildings in Denbighshire, and you know, it came out as it did. So I'm confident that the process was carried out correctly, and I completely agree that, you know, we don't want to create a culture where you put emotion together to get what you want for the interests of your area. I would just say on it as well that in discussions with Prestatyn High School, the press that surrounded that motion was negative, and the school was very wounded by it, really, and you know, it didn't represent their feelings on the matter and the good work that had already been underway, working closely with Geraint and with Denbighshire officers. They do want to see work progressing now, because obviously it's frustrating. We've had the pandemic. That's obviously caused issues, and you know, they're keen to get an update of where they are. But when I spoke to the head there and the chair of governors, you know, that they were supportive that Denbighshire were doing what they could for them. They just wanted an update, basically, where we're up to and what can we look at next. Accessibility was their biggest concern. They do have a teacher there who was recently had, you know, life-changing injuries that will be coming up soon. So that was their big thing they wanted to look at. But the school and I are clear that this process has to be fair, and you know, and I'm confident that it is, and any kind of monitoring and pushing forward of things will be on what the work that's already been agreed. I won't become a lobbyist for Prestatyn High. I'm the lead member for education, and I represent every child in Denbighshire. And as somebody who's been in education for a long time, it's very important to me to hold on to the mantra that every child matters. It's what's taken me through my professional career, and matters to me personally. So just want to reassure you, Hugh, that completely agree. And you know, it will be looking at things already agreed, and every school will have due attention. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jill. And there's no further questions, and I'm looking at the screen as well. Do you want to take us to the recommendations?
Bill, screen's just gone. No, it's okay. I've got them here. So the recommendations are that the committee confirms the view of the Modernising Education Programme Board that no significant change had occurred in respect to the condition of the school buildings, and that the current priority order of schools is still current and correct. Thank you.
So that's a proposal. Do we have a seconder, Julie? Let's go to the vote on the recommendation. Okay, again, that's unanimous. Agenda item, and that is agenda item 9, finance report, and I'll hand over to Gwyneth.
Audience.
Thank you, Leader. This report, we're asking the members to note the budget set for 2022-23 and the progress against the agreed strategy. You will see a summary of the revenue budget in Appendix 1, the narrative around the risks and the variances in Appendix 2, and the current status of the capital plan in Appendix 3. On the whole, I think that the budgetary situation is promising, but we do acknowledge substantial risks due to inflation, and this will be carefully monitored over the next few months. I would like to ask the Chief Finance Officer, Steve Gard, to give more detail about the report, please. Thank you, Steve.
Diolch, Gwyneth. Bore da pawb, I think still, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, so this is the regular monthly report. The last month obviously was a bit of a special one because it was the first one of the year. So we put a budget summary in there, and it's a bit more of a meaty report. This is the normal regular monitoring report. As Gwyneth noted in this report, there's no specific recommendation, so it is just an update. But I just wanted to highlight two things in the monitoring. One is obviously the position with children's services that has worsened since last month, and we monitor this closely. We've gone through a number of years where we've explained the difficulty with monitoring and predicting spend on children's services because it is such a demand-led service, and obviously when children need placements, they need placements, and finance comes, obviously we need to ensure value for money, but there's no question that we do have to provide them. So it's a very much a demand-led service, and just those numbers have increased this year. The need has increased, so obviously spend does increase as well. So we are monitoring it closely, and it will form part of the budget discussions in the autumn. So papers will be coming to the budget board to inform how we deal with this going forward. So it's just flagging that really, that it's it is an issue at the moment. The total overspend at the moment is manageable from contingencies. If it rose any higher, we would need to look at using base level reserves, which we do have available. But at the moment, that 1.9 million overspend, we think we can cope with that with contingencies that we put aside as part of the budget process, mainly because we put aside funding in the budget for ongoing impact of coronavirus, which obviously Welsh Government withdrew the hardship fund for local authorities, except for a few very specific items, such as the continuation of free school meal payments. So there's some specific items that are continuing, but the general funding is not there anymore. So we had to put forward some contingency just in case. It's really, obviously you're aware of what the coronavirus position is. It's a serious medical thing still, but financially, the financial impact isn't there anymore because we're not in lockdown position. So we can repurpose that if required, and we'll go through that later on in the year as and when we need to make those decisions finally. The only other thing in the report that I just wanted to mention was at 6.8, and this is just to confirm that we've allocated the contingency that we put in as part of the capital. This is actually funding that came from Welsh Government. It was unhypothecated. It came in March. So the decision was made to allocate that to a general capital contingency. Prior to the election, it was also approved that the waste project, we would need some of that contingency for that waste, and the delegated approvals were approved as part of those final reports. I think it was actually in April that that report went. So we have actually allocated 1.2 million now from the capital contingency to the waste project. That doesn't need a specific recommendation because it's in line with what was approved as part of the last cabinet report. So it's just carrying out that action. We weren't quite sure of what that figure would be, so it's just reporting that at 6.8. That still leaves an element of capital contingency for other smaller projects, but actually the two big projects this year that we were concerned about, Queen's Buildings and Waste, We have let those contracts now, so we should be in a more comfortable position going forward. And then just finally, obviously this is the report as at the end of June. There's the recess in August, so the next report will be in September. So I just wanted to highlight some risks. Some of these risks happen every year just because we miss a month, and it's a very important month for some services. So I'll just go through a couple of them. So obviously the school figures, most school budgets run from September, and recruitment's going on for various teachers, etc. Teacher movements happen over the summer. So we treat September, October figures as quite key figures for schools. And obviously, so there's just a caveat with the figures that have come through for schools so far, but they're looking comfortable, and they're looking like they are using that funding from Welsh Government that was for COVID recovery. So in both sectors, we're both items, we're sort of pleased about the progress on schools, but just to flag that risk that the real figures for the next academic year aren't known really till September. And the same sort of thing with school transport, which obviously has been a pressure in previous years. And until all those contracts are let, when we know the actual school numbers, we don't really know until September, October again what the figures for the rest of the financial year are going to be. Obviously, we've got estimates in, but there will be movement to those. So just flagging that one. There are other ones as well, like car parking, for instance. They rely heavily on summer tourism for a lot of their income. So we'll monitor that over the next couple of months. Children's will remain something we'll need to monitor really carefully. Gwyneth has already mentioned inflation, the impact of inflation, and obviously one of the key things for any public sector body, and local authorities know different to that. The key one is the pay offer and the pay settlement. So there's two elements to that, isn't there? There's the pay offer, which I believe has been made yesterday. And obviously, but that doesn't mean that is the settlement. So we'll need to look carefully and cost out that pay offer and use that as the monitoring basis, but recognise also that there's risk up and until that settlement is made with staff and unions. So that's all hot off the press. That obviously wasn't known when this report was done. So work is ongoing with that, and I'll report that back in September. But obviously that's a significant change that might happen between now and September. So just flagging some of those changes that might happen, really. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions, any issues we wish to raise for Cabinet? Lots of detail there, and in the appendices. Are there any, I'm looking at the screen, any questions from anyone who is joining us on Zoom? No? Okay, so Gwyneth, do you want to take us to the recommendation?
Thank you, Leader. So the recommendation is that members note the budget set for 2022-23 and the progress against the agreed strategy.
We're just noting, do you need a vote? We're just noting the budget, and thanks Steve yet again for his presentation today. And obviously a reminder that this Friday we have a budget workshop, all member budget workshop Friday morning. Anything you want to say on that, Steve? Any heads up on that, or?
No, just I think the agenda's gone out, so I'll be going through some background that might be less interesting for those of you who are long-serving members, but just to go through local authority finance, and then more specifically about where we're up to with our budget and how backbench members indeed can contribute with member proposals as happened last year. So I'll just go through that process.
Okay, thanks once again, Steve. Thank you. Agenda item, and that is the forward work programme. And that's just for noting, really. Gary?
There's just a couple of changes, Leader, since this was published. So the item in September, number 4, Queen's Market Operator Contract Award, that slipped from September to October. There's an additional item for September, which is the creation of a nutrient management board for the River Dee catchment area. So that's going to come in September. And then today, I think you've asked for a report in October on the review of the delegated decision process for the purchase of land for carbon sequestration and ecological improvement.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Are there any other comments on the forward work programme? And anyone who is joining us via virtually? No, okay, so that very much brings the meeting to an end. Thanks for everyone attending today. Thank you.